most of them are working from home, and some were living at the aquatic center.
Call to order the March 21, 2024 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today. County Counsel Stephen Madcore. Clerk Tony is out today, so serving as clerk is Everett Wild. Commissioner West is out of the office on military leave. Roll call. Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Smith.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Order will be followed in this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up first?
Thank you, Chair. First is a public hearing. Item 1, second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending Clackamas County Code, Chapter 5.01, Animal Licensing, Services, and Enforcement. No fiscal impact. No county general funds are involved. This is a continuation from March 14th, 2024. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, and Mike Besner, Assistant Director of Transportation and Development, will present. Go ahead, please.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, thanks so much. I'm going to keep my presentation pretty short, hand it over to Mike, because you've been through this a number of times. In short, we're looking at some minor changes to Chapter 5.01 of the County Code regarding animal licensing or dog licensing specifically. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike to kind of run through these changes.
All right, and then, yep, as Dan said, you've heard this a couple times before. So just a real quick summary of the substantive changes we're looking to make. Removing all language related to the licensing of animal rescue entities because it's no longer our responsibility because state law changed. Clarifying the definition of secure enclosure for dangerous dogs to give the hearings officer a little more flexibility to protect the public. He can say the interior of a home is not a secure enclosure if it meets the circumstances. Clarify the definition of violation to account for continuous violations so that time could add more violations. For example, if someone's been ordered to surrender a dog. Changes the dog licensing requirement that a rabies vaccination be valid for the entire term of licensing. Rather, it must be valid the day somebody gets their license. They're still required to maintain the vaccination through the term of the license, but allows us to give people dog licenses if their rabies vaccination term doesn't line up exactly with their licensing term, but it's still a requirement that they get the vaccination. Exempts dogs used in law enforcement from paying for a dog license in honor of the service those dogs provide to the community. They are still required to get a license. They're still required to have a rabies vaccination. Clarifies which violations require a mandatory appearance before a hearings officer. The most serious violations will still require one. There'll still be a hearing. The only thing is we're removing a requirement that people appear for certain minor violations. Clarifies that dog control officers can present legal arguments, examine witnesses, and present rebuttal evidence when presenting cases to the hearings officer. Previously, language didn't really give them an opportunity to do it. That actually came from a recommendation from County Council. Gives the hearings officer the ability to issue amended decisions to correct errors or omissions that don't materially affect the decision. Requires a monetary deposit by a person seeking a stay of a hearings officer order to euthanize a dog while the person seeks judicial review or pursues an appeal. And this just avoids frivolous appeals where a dog will sit in our dog shelter for months. And clarifies that the cost of impoundment may be a fee imposed by the hearings officer when ruling on a violation. Those are the significant changes.
Thank you, Mike, for presenting. You said the law changed. Are most of these changes you mentioned came from the change in the law, the state law?
No, I would say just that first one that removed the responsibility for the county to track and licensed animal rescue.
And how did you arrive at the changes?
I would say probably a year or two of work with county council, our hearings officer, and our dog services staff to just make general improvements and modify with the times and make things easier and better for everybody.
Good, based on experience, based on problems we've had in the past?
Yep.
So you're just clearing up. Okay, commissioners, do you have any qualifying comments regarding this? I will now open the meeting for public testimony and take the in-person testimony first regarding the hearing on the dog licensure aspect. There are no people in person who would like to testify. Everett, is there anyone online who would like to testify about this?
If there is anyone on Zoom who would like to testify on the dog services ordinance, please use the raise hand feature at this time. Chair, I do not have anyone with their hands raised.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing and ask the board, is there any further discussion? I will entertain a motion.
I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved we read the ordinance by title only, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. The motion is approved, and I will have the clerk read the ordinance by title only.
The ordinance will be numbered 01-2024, an ordinance amending Clackamas County Code, Chapter 5.01, Animal Licensing, Services, and Enforcement.
Do commissioners have any proposed changes or amendments to the draft ordinances at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 01-2024, an ordinance amending Clackamas County Code, Chapter 5.01, Animal Licensing, Services, and Enforcement.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savis has moved we approve ordinance 01-2024, an ordinance amending Clackamas County Code, Chapter 5.01, Animal Licensing, Services, and Enforcement. And the motion has been seconded by Commissioner Scholl. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the poll?
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much for coming today. Gary, what's up next?
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Everett, would you please read the consent agenda?
Consent agenda for elected officials. Approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. Under Transportation and Development, approval of a board order vacating a portion of Spalding Avenue, County Road 2229. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Number 2, approval of a board order authorizing a purchase order for 3 2025 Freightliner 114 SD trucks with Columbia dump bodies for transportation maintenance through a State of Oregon cooperative purchasing agreement with Premier Truck Group of Portland. Total contract value is $815,685. Funding is through County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Clackamas County Development Agency to continue administering a housing rehabilitation program for low-income homeowners in the North Clackamas Renewal Area. Agreement value is $300,000 for 5 years. Funding is through the Development Agency, North Clackamas Renewal Area Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the Clackamas County Children's Commission for Healthy Families of Oregon programming. Agreement value is $1,792,274.92. $1,792,274.92 for 1 year and 8 months. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care. No county general funds are involved. Under County Administration, number 1, approval of a change order with Clackamas Progress Partners, LLC for change order 017 for the replacement county courthouse. Change order value is $24,353.85, leaving a balance of $169,574.55 in credits. Funding through credits from previous change orders, which includes budgeted county general funds. Under tourism, approval of a goods and services contract with Oregon Media LLC for design, printing, and distribution of annual travel planners. Contract value not to exceed $657,090 over 5 years. Funding through transient room tax, no county general funds are involved. Under human resources, approval of the memorandums of agreement regarding cost of living adjustments for represented employees with the Clackamas County Employees Association, the Clackamas County Employees Association for the Housing Authority, the Clackamas County Employees Association for part-time and temporary employees, and AFSCME Local 350-0 for the Department of Transportation and Development and Business and Community Services. Total value is $1,358,576. Funding is through state and federal funds, fees and fines, and other budgeted funds, and approximately $600,000 in unbudgeted county general funds. Chair, that is the end of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Commissioner Schrader has moved we approve the consent agenda, and Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Clackamas County Development Agency Board of Directors.
Next is the consent agenda for the Clackamas County Development Agency. Everett, would you please read the consent agenda?
Development Agency Consent Agenda, one item. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County to continue administering a housing rehabilitation program for low-income homeowners in the North Clackamas Renewal Area. Agreement value is $300,000 for 5 years. Funding is through Development Agency North Clackamas Urban Renewal Area funds. No county general funds are involved. Chair, that is the end of the list.
Thank you. Does any director wish to remove any items? I will entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the Development Agency consent agenda.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Scholl and seconded by Director Schrader for approval of the Development Agency consent agenda. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please take the poll?
Director Savas,
Aye.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion is approved by 4-0. I will now adjourn as a Development Agency and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners. Up next is public communication already. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony and take in-person testimony first. Up first is Les Poole. Please state your name and your area of residence.
Good morning, Les Poole. I live here in Clackamas County and haven't been in a while. I had some back problems. We all have our issues, but feeling pretty good again. And while I was trying to recoup, I missed the first ice storm in my entire life here in the county. So while I was gone, I was in California and spent quite a bit of time observing and witnessing how tolling is going down there. And I just couldn't help but bring up that infamous subject because while it's at least temporarily not happening, I believe that ODOT and our regional government, Metro, are absolutely going to continue to promote it. And this tolling concept came prior to HB 2017, and it's included in HB 2017 as a study of congestion pricing, because in all of what's gone on with the last few years, with ODOT talking about equity and making tolling fair, and frankly dancing all over the place when it comes time to providing clear answers on clear subjects, what it amounts to is that tolling is legal for, or currently authorized by the federal government to pay or help finance a project. But that's not what ODOT is planning. And I want to reiterate that the mandate was for reduction of congestion, addressing congestion. And that really hasn't been happening through all of this, not even close. And so I want to thank everyone who has worked hard. The commission's been very united about it. And in general, just from someone who's been participating for the last 15, 18 years, probably longer, it's good to see that it seems as you're working together better. I know it's tough. You're constantly bombarded. If I send you an email or call the office tomorrow morning and you don't return my call, I don't take it personally. Some folks are really fired up because they're not getting an immediate response from the government when you get 200 emails apiece every day. So I just want to reiterate that for those that don't know so much about policy and spending and what's been going on, Clackamas County has been a leader in homelessness and some other things, and certainly done a very commendable job of trying to address the transportation mess. And what makes it so difficult is we're dealing with the state, we're dealing with ODOT, we're dealing with Metro, and while they come across as being very objective, they're political organizations if I've ever seen one. So thank you again for what you're doing, especially the chair and Paul Savas. Paul, I've lost track of how many years Commissioner Savas has spent addressing tolling and representing the county at Metro, and that's a tough job. So stay after it, and you'll be seeing me again. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. You also helped end stopping tolling with your citizen advocacy, and that's appreciated. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to testify today? Don't see anyone. Clerk, is there anyone online?
Thank you, Chair Smith. If you have not registered to testify and would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature at this time. Chair Smith, I do not have anyone interested in speaking.
Well, thank you. That is the end of my list. I will close the public communication portion of this meeting and move on. Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Next is County Administrator Update. That's me. I like to share the great work of our county employees during my updates. Today, I'd like to recognize our staff in Health, Housing, Human Services, Division of Children, Family, and Community Connections, and the Workforce Program and staff who help people find jobs, including those from special populations who may need some extra help, including people who are on parole and probation. Recently, a person was released from a 22-year prison term. This person is deaf and can only communicate through sign language and writing. So our workforce specialist here at the county, Doug Van Zant, helped this person find a job. But not only that, here's what Doug did. He encouraged the client to stop smoking marijuana so that this person could pass a drug test, which the person did. They stopped smoking and they passed the drug test. Doug set up an interview for this person with a local employer and ensured that an interpreter was present to communicate with the person. Doug drove this client to the job interview and helped this person secure a job, a full-time job with benefits, and Doug coordinated with that employer to make sure there was an interpreter on site to help this person during the training period. Doug did all that, way beyond the call of duty of what our workforce specialists do. This person also, beyond getting a full-time job, was accepted at Clackamas Community College to advance their education, and will be starting there in a few weeks. So I want to thank Doug Van Zant from our workforce team in Children, Family, and Community Connections, and all our staff in that program in particular, but all the team of that unit that really helps people on a one-on-one basis to help better their lives. A great story, fantastic. A protocol note, Commissioners, as you know, the board will be on recess next week, March 25th through 29th. There will be no business meeting on March 28th. The next business meeting of this board will be on Thursday, April 4th at 10 a.m. That is my update today, Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you, Gary. I love hearing those stories. This is great, just great. I think we have a lot of caring employees at Clackamas County who want to help. Now it's time for Commissioner communication. Up first, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah. Last night, we were at a NCPRD district meeting, and the issue came up about deferred maintenance, and kind of struck a chord with me in the sense that we've got, at least I've been here since 2011, and almost out of the gate in 2011 came up a property that the Housing Authority had, which we had a number of residents in, and it was called Eastern Ridge, for those of you who may remember that. And a lot of controversy around that because it was something that had been purchased under the guise of that it was in good condition, and it turned out it was not in good condition, and it took millions of dollars and a couple 3 years to complete. Recently, I was on a ride-along with the sheriff's office and got a chance to drive through that property again and, see it in good order. So we ended up in a good place with it, but that was the first one. But my point here today is that there's been a series of that, and this is not related to NCPRD per se, but it's more about government and government buildings, deferred maintenance and all that, some of which can be addressed, some of which is not worth putting money into. There are properties that are so far gone or so out of date that they're not worth putting money into. But yet, government sometimes does just that. So I think we need to be wise into how we invest our monies and seek value out of it, and also how we purchase properties in the future. I got examples of that. The other one that came up shortly after Eastern Ridge was the Clackamas Library, which is now the Sunnyside Library, another kind of debacle in which we put millions into on the assumption it was in good shape. It was a good building to purchase. We had the issue not too long ago with Tukwila Springs. We were told that, hey, for about $1 million or so, we can buy this building, and with $500,000 of improvements, we can move in 6 months. And that was woefully incorrect. And we rushed to a decision, in my opinion, without doing due diligence and doubling down on due diligence. We bought the building. Unfortunately, we ended up spending close to $20 million on that building to get it up to speed, and it took 4 or 5 years to actually open it. So the other one that we almost got pushed into buying was the Econo Lodge. We almost bought the Econo Lodge, and it turns out that that's got some structural issues not identified in the first round of inspections, but pointed out after the fact. Yet we took some political heat for not purchasing the building. Interesting. So you get heat when you don't purchase something, and you get heat when you sell something. So Hillside Manor, a long-standing property of the Housing Authority, been in existence a long time. It's served its purpose for a long time. The tallest building in Clackamas County, I believe, still today. But we did put money in that and rebuilt that building, and we have a number of residents in there. About 100 residents are in that building. So we talked here just a couple days ago about the Hillside project, which we're going to be replacing 50 old 1940-ish dilapidated buildings that we have people living into. It's unhealthy. The good news is we're replacing those with new housing, reasonable funding, nothing coming out of the general fund of Clackamas County, but nonetheless, we're going to replace that with about, was it 275 units?
Yes, I think so, Paul.
Yeah, 270. So that's substantial. So there's good aspects of this and not so good aspects. Clackamas Heights is another property that needs refurbishing. Oregon City Manor is another one that needs refurbishing. Parra Creek You know, we had the Parra Creek situation, pouring money into that thing left and right. Fortunately, we were able to dispose of that property. We didn't crash it, but we basically gave it, and now it's being restored and invested in, so that's in a better place. The livestock building at the fairgrounds, for those of you who were around at that time, another debacle. We had 2 inspections on that building. Ultimately, we tore it down, and we're hoping with a lot of work and contributions and ARPA money to get that new building erected. It's kind of an exciting project, so we're looking forward to that. The one very close to us, the courthouse. Right behind us, we have a new courthouse going up. That's obviously costing us substantial millions of dollars, but we've outgrown it. It wasn't worth pouring money into the old building. It was a responsible thing to invest in it. All to say, a lot of deferred maintenance, and I want to segue to transportation, but I thought, no, what better of an example to use than Old Blue? So for those of you who know what Old Blue is, that's the Transportation Facilities Building. It also was at one time our building for DTD for planning, engineering, and all that. And we built this building across the way called DSB, and a lot of those services have been put over there. And we built a new facilities building, again, millions of dollars. We decided wisely not to invest into Old Blue because it had, number one, it was in a floodplain, had been flooded, had a number of challenges, but a great example to compare last night's discussion to Old Blue, and that being that you know, we are relying on transportation funding to, number one, pay for the building, number two, maintain the building, and also maintain our roads, by the way, which is what houses a lot of our operations. Good investment, I don't question that, but a great example where we have diminishing resources. The amount of dollars coming in is not keeping pace with the amount of, the costs are going up and the revenue is not keeping up with those increasing costs. Similarly, you know, the Concord building that is going to be used for both the community center and for office staffing in the Oak Grove area is going to serve the district, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, as a district asset, as a regional asset within the district. So a lot of good will come out of that. One of the 3 buildings that we had made a trade on that really did not need as much work and investment as compared to the other 2 properties. But I want to get back to the transportation side of the equation, which is where I'm headed, and that is that this morning at JPAC, we had a substantial discussion about transportation funding. We had Lindsay Baker with ODOT come and speak to us from Salem about the transportation funding on the heels of our work plan and getting ready for 2025 legislative session as far as a transportation package, and also in light of the tolling scenario that we currently have, which still has a lot of uncertainty. Tolling is not off the table. The governor's said that. We don't know if it does get revived, what it will look like. So therefore, we are maintaining our advocacy for not the tolling project itself, but for the citizens of Clackamas County and the cities and the jurisdictions and the properties that are being used as what we call the 3rd lane of I-205, all that diversion traffic that's going through there. But a substantial discussion, again, back to transportation funding, and a lot of comments about that. I think there's a lot of people that want to build projects. I think there's some validity to building some of those projects. I don't agree with all of them. I think that we need to focus on what we truly need, not things that don't maybe get the utilization or have the needs out there. But, you know, there's a big rallying cry for more money, more money, more money. We hear that all the time in all forms of government. I know that's a sensitive thing for all of us.
I'm going to speak on that too. Thank you.
Yeah, good. But I think that, again, we got to put into scale. I made this comment this morning about, you know, the paradigm of transportation funding and how, number one, how people don't understand it, how it really doesn't work, and how outdated it is in the state of Oregon, and it really needs to change. But I talked about the 2 universes as an example. There's more than one universe in this context, but the one universe I talked to is about those people that are paying for transportation, whether it's registration fees, gas tax, whatever it may be. Some of them are overpaying and some of them are underpaying, and we don't know how many people are maybe having the right mix. So you have that universe. You also have the universe of people which are also paying, but getting no service, zero. So you have levels of service where people are well-served in transportation, and you can point to areas around the state and around this region where there's great service, and also in areas where there's little to no service or rotten service. So when you think about that and how they overlay one another, I don't know what that really looks like, but I think that's an analysis and a study worth engaging into. But again, I think we're still working with this broken model about how we approach things and how things are funded. And I made the other comment, a really important one, I actually put it in the chat for everyone to see, and that was the biggest mistake that they made on this tolling project, one, is that they didn't involve us. They locked us out. They locked the local governments out. They didn't hold hearings from 2017 forward. And that my concern now with this 2025 package is that they do the same thing again. They think they know it all, and they leave us out, or they don't engage us as they should. And there's been this, like a wall, this isolation. You know, when the legislature knows it all. I'm not being critical, certainly, but they're getting their information from one source typically. In this case, ODOT. They're not getting it from everyone else. I just hope that we don't make those same mistakes, and you know, we all work together on that. And I just have that concern again that we're working in a broken paradigm. We're not thinking about the overall picture, and you know, their only common theme is more money, and I don't disagree that there are areas that are underfunded that we need to address, but I think we need to be surgical about it and not just overall think that because they need more money, we just dish it out without having any oversight, any responsibility, any what's the right word here? Oversight that essentially delivers on the promises. And HB 2017 happened. It resulted in increases in registration fees, gas taxes, and yet there are projects in HB 2017 that are not even being acted on right now. So I said a lot there, but all to say, at one point, just want to let my colleagues know for the fun of it, I'm going to add up all those projects that I mentioned earlier, Eastern Ridge, Clackamas Library, Tequila Springs, add all those together just for the fun of it and see how much money that comes up to.
I think that'd be a good exercise. I have a similar project I'm going to tell you about. Thank you. Is that it, Commissioner Savas?
Yes.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Commissioner Savas, you're going to need a big calculator to get that number. Thank you very much. On energy, good morning, Clackamas County. On energy, the Oregon Public Utilities Commission has now rejected all three of our state's natural gas operators' plans to meet greenhouse gases. Now, this affects every home, every business, and every farm in Clackamas County. A proposal from the Cascade Natural Gas to cut greenhouse gas emissions was refused last week, and that comes after the Oregon Public Utilities Commission has shot down plans by Northwest Natural Gas and Southern Oregon provider Avista. Now, these natural gas providers have to figure out another plan to meet Oregon DEQ requirements, and that is to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2035 and by 90% by 2050. And they want to take at least 26% out of those cuts out of natural gas. Now, here's the problem. These cuts, these cuts by this Public Utilities Commission, they always result in a higher cost of production by the natural gas companies. And that goes right to your bill. And everyone in the county knows that in the last 2 years, their natural gas bill has gone up by about 30%. We know that our electricity has gone up by that much in the last couple of years. And even people are complaining to me about the steep increase in their water bills. And we know that if the public the Portland Water Bureau does their new plant out on the east end of our county, across the county line in Multnomah County, that their water bills will go up another 4 times, because that bill to build that thing is going to be about $2 billion. So I bring this up to you because at some point in time, we need to put the pressure back on Oregon DEQ and say, wait a minute. We already are a very clean state when you compare us to other parts of the world. We put out a tiny fraction of 1% of world carbon each year, and it's not fair to harm our economy if we cannot balance the need to have a clean environment with the need to have a vibrant economy in which our people can afford to live here. So again, I bring that to your attention. The other thing too, recently, I've been getting a lot of comments from constituents. Commissioner Scholl, what's happening in America with the high number of illegal aliens we have to deal with now? And what is the impact on the state of Oregon and Clackamas County to deal with these immigrants? And I want to remind people that in 1987, Oregon became a sanctuary state. It is now one of 11 states in America that has sanctuary state laws. What is that? Those are laws that stop state and local police and government from helping federal authorities with immigration enforcement. And so people say, well, what have we done to change that? Well, in 2018, there's a bill, 105, that went before the voters to end the sanctuary state status of Oregon. And guess what? It failed. 64% wanted to keep it, 36% wanted to get rid of it. And then in 2021, the state legislature further enforced our sanctuary state status. So what is the cost to the state of Oregon to deal with, house, feed, clothe, whatever medical support to illegal aliens? Answer, unknown. Unknown. Nobody seems to know the answer. Nobody even knows the number of illegal aliens that we have to care for in accordance with our sanctuary state laws. So I bring that to your attention. In a time when people are having a hard time paying their bills, how much of your taxes go to support illegal aliens? I advocate for a lawful immigration policy for America, one that will be safe and fair, provide for people that come to this nation to become citizens, or people to come to this country on a work visa, a safe, sane way to maintain our immigration. And I bring that to your attention this morning, and I ask you to get involved and contact your state rep, your representatives to the U.S. Congress, and demand that we have a nation that is a nation of laws once again. On short-term rentals, you know, we've been working on this for a long time now, and we are taking registrations. If anyone out there in Clackamas County, unincorporated, who has a short-term rental, and if you have not registered it yet, go to clackamas.us/STR. Get it done now, please. It's going to make your operation and your neighborhood a much better place. On farming, this goes back to what I talked about earlier about energy. This board of commissioners has been a strong advocate for the health and prosperity of farms in Clackamas County. Now, recently, I've been getting calls from small dairy operators about Oregon Department of Agriculture imposing stricter regulations on their operations. Now, when our small farmers can no longer operate at a profit, or if they're regulated out of being able to operate, this is something that's very serious. And we need to, again, push back on this. Regulations, in some cases, might be good, but when you force small operators who are just making a few bucks to keep a small farm going, when you push them out of business, that is a problem. And so I recommend that our rural community in this county, you get together with your local Grange, then bring in your local CPO, and let's get a unified voice to push back against the Oregon Department of Agriculture on excessive regulations of small farms. Thank you very much. And again, for all of you in Clackamas County who work hard to make your small farm productive, I really appreciate your work. On transportation, on 10 April will be our next Sunrise Corridor open house. It's going to be in Happy Valley at the Adrian Nelson High School Commons on Southeast Park Lane Drive in Happy Valley. It starts at 5:30, and please come and voice your opinion on how you think Phase 2 of the Sunrise Corridor should look. On IP4, like Commissioner Savas has mentioned already, we got a pause from the governor on tolling again, but I submit to you that that is only a pause, and so we need to keep the pressure on IP4 and get that on the ballot in front of the voters. Please go to votebeforetolls.org and get involved. If tolls do come and you haven't signed IP4 and your family hasn't signed it, your neighbors haven't signed it, don't complain about getting that $2,500 a year bill for tolling to drive across Abernathy Bridge. Okay, another thing on transportation I have to share with you this morning. Like Commissioner Savas mentioned, there seems to be a lot of money for projects like the Rose Quarter project over the I-5 in Portland and other projects, but no money for I-205. Well, what we needed was $400 million to finish out the expansion of the lanes, one lane each way between 10th Street exit on Stafford Road and Highway 213. We never got a penny for it. And so here's what I have to share with you this morning. The current biennium budget of the state of Oregon is $121.7 billion. Out of that, we needed to find $400 million. Now, take 6 zeros off the $121.7 billion, and you get $121,700. Take 6 zeros off the $400 million, and you get $400. If I gave you $121,700 to operate your house for the next 2 years, and you needed your driveway fixed so you get out in the morning, and the contractor said, well, that'll cost you $400. Do you think you could find $400 out of $121,700 to fix your driveway? Well, that's the same ratio we're looking at. Further, as Commissioner Savas mentioned, he mentioned House Bill 2017. I've been getting some indications from advocates in transportation, people who advocate against tolling, that there might be a significant amount of money in ODOT that's not reflected in the $121.7 billion. That is why I and others advocate for the immediate audit of ODOT to see exactly where the money is. We want to know where every penny of money is in the ODOT budget. And so I recommend, like I've said so many times before, that the real power to make things happen is in the voice of the individual citizen. When you get together with your neighborhood, your city, your CPO, that is where the real force of politics is. So I encourage people to get together and look at these issues and come up with a unified voice to demand action. So with that, I want to thank everybody in Clackamas County who works to raise your family and run your business. And I hope that this weekend we get sunshine again. I'm praying for it. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Up next, Commissioner Schrader.
Well, thank you for introducing agritourism. I'm going to get a briefing today from Kimberly and our staff because she went to the agritourism meeting yesterday and hooked up with an extension agent that specializes in that. And why are we interested in that? Because we want to make sure that our smaller farms that depend on agritourism are actually being able to do what they need to do in order to market their products. And recently we found out that there are some issues with some of those folks. And I know that Chair Smith and I have committed ourselves, if I may say that, Chair Smith, to basically work on a legislative project this next go-round to fix land use so these folks don't get stopped doing what they need to do. In particular, one of the issues is school tours. And I feel very strongly about this because, as many of you know, I ran a small farm, a 60-acre farm for many years, where I delivered strawberries across the entire Portland metro area. I know people don't like Portland very much, but they did buy our strawberries. So, you know, had to cross the border into Portland to do that. So I feel very strongly about this. I know that we had lots of school groups on our farm when I was running that particular business. And it was essential because it helped people learn about agriculture. It helped people learn what we did on the ground. And they also got to pick in a very about 5-acre market garden that we had pulled together. So not only did they get to pick, I remember every Saturday and Sunday going to the farmers markets, Beaverton, Canby, you name it, out there. We'd harvest, starting about 4 in the morning, and then we'd go out and we'd work all day with our farmers markets selling our produce. And that is one of the reasons today I'm such a big proponent of farmers markets where I get fresh food and produce. Okay, and so watch Cooking with the Commissioner, because I buy food from the farmers markets and then I show people how to prepare it on television, so it's a fun thing to do. A couple of other things I wanted to let folks know is that I have been looking over the information from our business recovery centers, and that is what we set up during COVID when many of the businesses were suffering because of closures and things of that sort. And so what we did was take CARES dollars as well as ARPA dollars, in other words, money that we had been given for the federal government. We allocated that money to business recovery centers across the county. The Oregon City Chamber helped administer this, and basically it helped close to 2,000 businesses remain open. Well, open as much as that they could weather the economic input of the closures and things that were happening. I know a number of people didn't agree with that, but the pragmatic thing to do, one way or the other, was to at least make sure that they were getting a revenue stream so they could survive any kind of regulations or any kind of directives that we were doing. So it was was a really pragmatic piece. I visited the Sandy Chamber. They loved it. I visited the Estacada Chamber. They thought it was really fantastic, helped a lot of their small businesses. So I'm kind of looking to see what's out there in terms of grant dollars to see if we can continue to fund this. Not from general fund. I'm not talking about taking any money from what we have already allocated for the business of the county with other things that we have to prioritize. But I do believe that working with the staff at the National Association of Counties, that maybe we can identify additional dollars to keep this going. So I just wanted to let my colleagues know I'm working on that project too. Some of the businesses I visited, particularly I was just out in Estacada, fantastic. I visited their industrial center, and it was absolutely amazing. I cannot believe the growth of what they have there for their small business community. And in particular, they featured Frameworks Incorporated, or frameworkplusincorporated.com. And these are folks, it's a smaller to medium-sized business. They do outdoor living spaces, custom timber trusses, attached outdoor living, pavilion kits, and much more. I would encourage folks to visit, go out to that industrial area and get a real look at it, because they're on-the-ground small businesses, and it occurred to me that they are exactly one of the businesses that is poised to, they're national. They could eventually go international, but when we talked yesterday, colleagues, about getting a grant program going, immediately these folks jumped to mind, because, you know, they have to make payroll every month, and there are times when, you know, this is custom stuff, and they're the kind of business that we would like to help, I think.
Okay.
The other thing was Apex Systems, which I didn't realize. They're a big international company. And I met one of the fellows there, and I'm going to go back and visit them, but they do military things too. And I said, well, do you know about the Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition? He looked at me, he said, well, how do you know about that? I started to laugh, because I said, well, you know, it started in Clackamas County, because back in the day when we were working with Shelley Perini and our economic development folks, we actually gave them a cubicle in the development, what was in the development services building, with a phone. And that's how they got started. And they connected all the major businesses, the smaller businesses and the larger businesses. And now they're one of the biggest specialty manufacturing coalitions, not just here, but regionally. So he looked at me and he said, you did that? And I said, well, it wasn't just me. It was our economic development department, which we are now revitalizing, and it was also just a wonderful person I worked with. And it was the business community that saw the connections together and ran with it. And see, that's what I think. When you do public, private, and nonprofit kinds of things like that, where everybody's working together, you can work magic. So I am going to go back and visit those businesses. And colleagues, I would want to invite you if you all want to go out on a tour of that whole area. Mm-hmm. And then I took a drive around Estacada itself to see all the new housing. Mm-hmm. Comparatively speaking, the housing there is affordable. I think you can get $300,000 to $500,000, which is a lot of money, but compared to some of the prices locally here, so I have to tell you, the city is booming out there. Mm-hmm. Similarly, with the Sandy Chamber, I visited them as well. We talked about the business recovery centers. I had a meeting with their director and their folks. And again, I think that all of us, we can see what we can do to maybe get some federal dollars down this way again, to see if we can continue those recovery centers. Very popular. They don't want to stop. They think it's extremely necessary for us to keep doing that. The last visit I did was Oregon Tech. And Oregon Tech really is here in Wilsonville, and they are a small university, but they have the highest return on investment of any other colleges in the university system. They are a technical college. They do bio-optics, they do engineering, they do innovation in 3D imaging, you name it, they do it. They have online classes available for students, as well as on-site classes. And I actually visited with Mayor Julie Fitzgerald, because what they're looking to do next is to see if they can get a specialty housing program going close to them, where they bring professors and technical experts and businesses from all around the country to actually stay there and do symposiums in one area of a building, so they kind of get a national view of what is going on in, like, chips manufacturing, and like I said, biotechnology. And you can look them up. Just go to Oregon Tech and you'll get a whole list of the classes that they offer. And they also do EMT classes, is my understanding, and medical classes as well. Really, really fun. And they are also affiliated, one last thing, with the Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center, And that is called OMIC, and that is located in Scappoose and Portland Community College. It works with them as well. Why is OMIC important? Well, another cool thing is what OMIC does is work directly with the larger industries and the traded sector folks. And they train a workforce to really, for young people and older people that want to change a field, to really get a job very, very quickly by having the businesses on site and getting trained as people that those businesses, places like Boeing, so on and so forth, can employ. And my connection with that was I had an opportunity when I went to England to see my daughter to go to Sheffield, England. And OMIC is modeled after the model that was founded in England. And I went to visit that. And again, bio-optics, they had people from the nuclear industry who are specializing in containment. Things like fiber optics. Rolls-Royce had a center there. They also had a training center on site, okay? So all of those businesses were literally helping to fund a training center so they could get a trained workforce and a pipeline. So again, those young people could get jobs. And I met the man that founded it, Dr. Adrian Taylor, I believe his name was, and Sheffield was a mess. Everything, the coal industry had been closed down there. They were sinking into deep poverty. And the fact that they innovated with this training center, now the whole place is booming again. So I know sometimes I get hit for traveling, but I will say, I'm going to say this. When I do, I always bring something back from this county. And that model has been, thanks to people like Betsy Johnson, has come to Oregon. And I am hoping we can work even more closely with ClackCo Community College, because they're very close to Oregon Tech, and see if we can't pull up, get that synergy going between those two educational institutions. So that's the view from Lake Wobegon at this point. Oh, one last thing. I did go to the Fido Food Bank. I don't think if most of you folks know about Fido. They are a nonprofit in our county that provides actually a pet food bank for people's pets. So people who maybe oftentimes may not have quite the dollars that they need to keep a pet safe and healthy and fed, that they go there the third Saturday of every month, where they have a warehouse food bank. And it is absolutely fantastic. I went there and visited this, and you know why I think it's important? Because a lot of people have dogs and pets, because it really helps their mental health. Okay, I've seen it with veterans. I know we have people in our, actually here, that have pets with them that help. I know that even though I'm not always on time, thanks to my dogs, I do get up in the morning. Okay, that's part of the problem. And thank God for them, because I don't know, I probably wouldn't make it really at all if I didn't. And so I think this is an important nonprofit, largely because it's helping people keep their pets, helping them keep their dogs, letting them have that companionship that, there's nothing like going home and having your dog jump on your lap and just, cuddle with you, right? So anyway, that's my news today, and thank you for bearing with me, folks. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. As chair of Clackamas County, I get the very dubious distinction of meeting with Metro on a regular basis regarding the supported housing services tax allocation. First, they started the oversight committee, and then they decided they need the tri-county planning body, and now they've developed a third layer of a roundtable stakeholders, of regional roundtable stakeholders, to decide if we should extend the current tax or sunset it, make it permanent, and the tax doesn't expire until 2031. We are only in year 3, and Metro is worried that it's not permanent. So yesterday, I went to downtown Portland, and sat with a very distinguished group of people, many business owners, a couple electeds, not many, representatives of the business associations, people who represent nonprofits, realtors, developers, construction people. And what the presentation was, they went through all the possible taxes that they could levy upon the citizens. And it would cost us a fortune to extend this tax. They considered another property tax. They decided that might not work so well. And they have done polling, and they know the polling, as I have told Lynn Peterson, nobody will support this again. And it did not pass in Clackamas County, by the way. And it barely passed in Washington County by only 2 points. And Multnomah County passed it. And they know if they ran a tax in Multnomah County right now, it would fail badly. And so we were presented with 2 questions. And I took quite umbrage with the questions, because the questions didn't have really good answers. And the questions were, what would need to be included in a recommendation to ensure the needs of a new tax? That was the one question. The other question was, what questions and concerns need to be addressed before we do a new tax? And those were parameters we were given. And we sat with the table. I'm going to cut it short here. So we had a representative from our table who stood up, and the people at our table represented many different stakeholders. And I stood up and said, first of all, I object to the premise of your questions, and I'm not going to answer them. Because what you're doing here in year 3, you're assuming that at the end of, when the tax is supposed to end in 2031, that our homeless population is the same today as it is at the end of the tax. If that is your assumption, then you have already admitted failure and this tax is not working. Why would you extend it again? And the data they presented to us was only about money, 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 and somehow we need more of it. And I said, in your data is totally flawed. You have not mentioned where the homeless population is. Is it going up in this sector, down in this sector? We know in Clackamas County, we're working really hard. We have lowered our homeless population, and so has Washington County. But you don't see the data. I says, your data is totally skewed. How can you possibly make a decision on only money, but you don't show the people where the homeless people are and what we're doing with them? And then I sat down and it was dead silence, and there were 100 people in the room. 100 people in the room, and I was the only one that spoke out. Until I spoke out. Washington Chair Catherine Harrington also stood up and said, because there's 5 of these meetings, I demand that the tri-chairs of each county speak at this next meeting so you know exactly what's going on in each of our counties. Because the tri-chairs are united pretty much against what Metro wants to do. And then what came out, just in a Q&A, they asked the presenter, Patricia Rojas, says, well, there's a surplus of tax money coming in, right? She says, yes. Can anybody take a guess at the end of 10 years what the projected surplus is? I'm open.
A couple billion, probably.
At least $500 million surplus, 30% a year overage in this tax. Yet they want to continue to extend it. And I'm saying, this is a no-go. Do we let it sunset? Do we extend it? I believe Metro's goal is to make this a permanent tax, so they can empire build. They've already sent out RFPs to hire, are you ready? 40 housing people. Now, Metro does not know how to do housing. They don't know how to do social services. Why do they need 40 people? I submit they better start hiring some accountants, because I do not believe they can pass an audit unless their own internal auditor comes and says, oh yeah, you guys are doing great. I believe they're in violation of state budget law. I believe they are in violation of the national standards for budget law. I believe they are failing every way on their budget, and that's going to be my next recommendation to the group when I go in 2 weeks from now. I very much look forward to the tri-chairs making their presentation, and the people in the room will then understand. This is the second meeting of this group, and a lot of people who are coming are very interested in this, who don't necessarily support this. And the aha moment went on when I spoke. Oh, we're here to get buy-in on extending the tax. Now I know why I'm in the room. And so it's very difficult right now. It's very difficult. The leadership wants to run the tax this November 24. This is year 3. And remember, we didn't even start collecting the tax until after year 1. So we've been collecting the tax a very small amount of time. And Metro is ready to go out and make it permanent. And you know how they think they're going to be successful? Are you ready for this? We've heard this before. In the ballot question they ask, because they're going to re-index the income levels, and they can say in the ballot title question, Les is shaking his head yes, do you support lowering the tax? And it won't be a lie, but it won't totally be the truth either. And a lot of people don't read beyond the initial ballot question. So I'm not pleased with that. Not pleased with that at all. Tuesday night, there was a call with the governor with the tri-chairs. And we had met, the tri-chairs had met on Monday night, knowing what we were going to say to the governor on Tuesday night. We weren't sure why she wanted to meet with us, but we had an inkling. And I said, I predicted what was going to be happening. I could not meet with the governor because I had a long-standing appointment. I asked her if she could change the appointment. She said no, so Gary Schmidt went in my place. Thank you, Gary. And she wanted, first of all, she says, in the new housing package passed by the Oregon legislature, whatever, how many hundreds of millions of that was, she didn't get all of it. And I knew that. And I knew she was going to come back to the tri-counties and say, you know, because you have the SHS tax, you don't need this state money. And I was hoping that she would say that. Sure enough, she did. I says, that's fine with us, because every time the governor tells us to do something, it's another added layer on top of what we're already doing, because leaders in Salem do not know how to deliver services, ever. Sure enough, she said that. No, you're not going to get that tax. And we're going, okay, fine. But I want all your numbers. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know how much money's here. I want to know how much money's there and what you're doing. A real camel's nose under the tent approach. And the resounding answer to that was no. You don't get it. And basically, mind your own business because we're doing really well, was the answer to the governor. So I was not in attendance, but I supported that move. Just wanted to let you know. It was the second call with the governor that I've had on the books in the last couple weeks. I asked her to veto a important bill that passed out of the short session that would increase the cost to us here at Clackamas County for private contracting. It would add $300,000 per contract to any work that was done. It would basically cripple cities and counties from doing work. And I asked her to veto that. She says, I don't get this. I says, I don't either. You need to veto it. Somebody's getting rich off this, Governor. Guess what? And it's not counties. So there's just all kinds of stuff going on. And you can't let your guard down for 1 second. There's just so much, and Marco will attest to that, and my two commissioners over. There is so much to do, and somebody complains that we don't answer an email in 5 minutes after they send it. Your emails are answered. Once we understand what, number one, the question you're asking, and how we can get information to respond. So we do answer calls, we do answer emails. Staff is not here on Friday, but each of the commissioner has private email, and we have private cell phones that most people know what they are. So we're trying to respond to constituents as fast and hard as we can, because there is, yes, a lot of work to do, and we do this work almost every day and every week. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for all coming today. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.